Welcome to the Best Life of Wellbeing podcast, designed to encourage you to focus on your overall well being and to embrace your whole life by focusing on your end of life. My name is Donna Marie, health coach, yogi, and death doula. And today's end of life discussion is titled The Art of Letting Go, where we will focus on decluttering, purging, sorting, clearing, and releasing. Join as we hear tips from two professional home organizers, 𝗧𝗿𝗰𝗆𝗄𝗃 and Tracy Johnson, to help us to organize the stuff we love and want to keep and to create habits to help us regularly release and clear out the stuff we don't need. Tracy Johnson and 𝗧𝗿𝗰𝗆𝗄𝗃 with me today. I just want to start off by saying our channel is dedicated to one, first and foremost, normalizing death conversation, end of life planning, legacy planning. And today we are talking to two home organizers who will give us some tips on what to do with our stuff. It's titled The Art of Letting Go. And we're going to talk about decluttering, clearing, purging, sorting, and releasing. This is the first conversation in a series of conversations, and we're starting with the home organizers, and then we will move on to have a conversation with a psychiatrist, actually, who specializes in trauma therapy. 𝗧𝗿𝗰𝗆𝗄𝗃. Tara sees herself as a design enthusiast who loves to see spaces neat and clean. And I know this personally about Tara. And she says from a child, she's loved seeing her room aesthetically pleasing. She would have been my mother's perfect child. And so organizing became instinctive for her. And so now what she does is help her family and friends to organize their space to alleviate stress, and so that they won't endure the overwhelm from clutter. And Tara is also a budding entrepreneur, and so she is an expert. And she will be offering her services in the future to help other people to eliminate that stress and overwhelm. And then we have Tracy Johnson, the owner of Atlanta Home Organizers, recently moved back to the DMV, or the DC, Maryland, and Virginia area from Atlanta. And she's now started her business here in the DMV area. Throughout her professional life, Tracy has used her unique eye for detail and organization to improve environments of homes and businesses. And as a professional organizer, she enhances the lives of her clients by developing custom organizing systems and teaching organizing skills, which I want to talk all about. As we get older, it is so important to, one, consider the stuff that we've collected and consider how we want to make meaning of it. If we never think about it, it's how we operate in life sometimes. We're on autopilot and we're never thinking about how we're living, and we're never thinking about how we want to end our life. So this is an end of life and legacy planning conversation, and we're starting with our clutter. So first, definition I pulled for clutter from Webster is a crowded or confused mass or collection. So I want to start with you, Tracy. How do you define clutter?
I definitely define clutter when somebody has an abundance of something and it's not put away with like items. So maybe, you walk into a closet, somebody's, closet, whether it be your own or, or somebody else's, and you have clothes that are not on the hangers, they're on the floor, and they're not even dirty. An abundance of shoes not lined up with their match, their mate. Hangers everywhere, dry cleaning everywhere, and then you've got the dirty clothes piled in there too. So that's just that's just one spot, one area that I would just kind of say that clutter can happen and that I've seen a lot of.
What about you, Tara?
Like Tracy, I feel the same way, but paper, a lot of paper and mail. When I see just junk mail piled on a countertop and there's no rhyme or reason why folks are keeping it. I like to take mail, dispose of it, and just not have your countertop. My sister's notorious. She has her dumping ground as her countertop. So that's clutter for me. And it just makes me feel better if there's nothing on the counter. So just
definitely. Oh my gosh.
I'm good at compartmentalizing my clutter. Like the one thing I can't stand is mail. So when my daughter lived with me, her responsibility was to check the mail, sort the mail, shred the junk mail, and I haven't lived with my daughter for a while. So I have one basket and I put all the mail in the
Well,
basket.
in a basket.
I do shred things. I don't put anything in the trash with my address and name on it. And so I put it to the side, one, because at some point I'm going to rip my address off and shred that. But it literally piles and piles and
And the
piles.
best way to deal with junk mail, as I tell most people, is to deal with it right then and there.
Right.
Like the day that you check the mail, you know, you get all the stuff from the neighborhood, you know, this and that kind of junk mail or whatever it is, all the, you know, oh, you need another credit card in your life kind of situation. Right then and there, it goes in the shredder. Open it, shred it. And sometimes I don't even open it. I just stick it in the shredder because I already know, like, this is just a credit card offer. So out of sight, out of mind, deal with it ASAP.
Like there is a recycle bin right where I pick up my mail. The ideal situation would be to stand there, go through my mail and dump what I don't want in the recycle bin.
I don't like junk mail or any of my mail actually going into a recycling bin. Well, unless it's torn up. Envelopes, yes, but or magazines, and then I tear off my address, because my understanding is our addresses and our information can be sold. People find it, dig through it, whatnot. And you never know with anything if there's like your social security, last 4 digits of your social security. So I just bring it in the house but just, I know it's hard, but even if you got down a system, like, because it usually should just be 1 or 2 pieces after a while. It shouldn't be 20 pieces. And at the beginning, it is a lot. But if you just go and put it through the shredder, then you don't have to worry about, you know, your information being compromised. It's definitely one of those things that takes a while to get used to and to conquer. But
Amazon sells this fancy little handy little tool where you could block out your address, and it makes it invisible for other people to see it, and get rid of your, instead of going through the shredding and tearing and all of that jazz. Take that little tool with you to your mailbox, mark it out, and just dump it into your recycle bin. It's real. It blocks it to where no one can see it, and that way you can just get rid of it. And most of the junk mail is like the sale ads. You can send. You don't. You know, you could just mark your address out right then and there and get rid of that stuff. But I can understand what Tracy was saying, like personal things. But a lot of the bulky stuff is like ads and
yes.
So you could just get rid of that instantly instead of bringing that back into your home.
That's really interesting.
So, Tracy, in your bio, it says that you teach people organizing systems. And so, Tara, like your example is kind of an organizing system. So when you go into a person's home, that's both of you, how does the conversation start? Obviously, someone reaches out to you and say, help, and I need to change. But change is hard for all of us, right? And so how do you start conversations with people about their stuff? And do you require people to get rid of stuff? I take great pride in the fact that I can actually still fit clothes that I wore 10 years ago.
Right.
But and they're there in case I want to wear them again.
I think we all have some of that in us.
Right. Yes. Yes, definitely.
So yeah, how does a conversation start though?
So it starts off, it's always going to be, the conversation's always going to be gentle. First of all, I don't make you get rid of anything. However, I am there to encourage you and ask you questions about those items, why you may or may not need it anymore, or when was the last time you used it? Do you like it, love it, hate it? I try to find out as much information. So once I've had, the meeting starts out that before we even start with any kind of organizing session is that I come to your home, or we have a virtual consultation. So it's either an in-person consultation or a virtual consultation. And during that session, it's just you, the client, talking about your home, talking about your environment, what you like, what you foresee, what you want your area to look like, and how peaceful you would like it to be. A lot of the time they forget to show me certain areas, but usually the consultation is of the whole home. So I can get an idea what your style is, how you've been keeping things, what your expectation is when it comes to getting things organized. A lot of clients will reach out and say, I'd like to get my home organized. A lot of them never say, I'd like help getting things decluttered out of my house and then organized, because a lot of people, I think, seem to think that we're genies and we're just going to nod our head and it's all going to be, fabulous. It's going to be fabulous, but it's going to be fabulous, one session at a time.
Yeah.
So it's really just kind of feeling the client out, and figuring out how they are going to need me to help guide them. Some clients are those kind of clients that you can give them a task and you're going to step over into the next room and start another project. Some clients are going to need me to be by their side the whole time, and each item is going to probably need to be a discussion until we move on to that next item about what to do with that item.
That's great. I think it's really important, like you said, to start small, one step
Right.
at a time. Even like with a fitness routine, it's recommended that you exercise 30 minutes a day. You can do the
Right.
straight 30 minutes, or you can do 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, and 10 minutes here to get your 30 minutes. It's kind of the same concept, I think. I know my closet. First of all, during COVID, I never went in my closet. There was no reason to touch anything there. So right now it's very dusty and I don't know what's in it, honestly. And I keep the door open. I'm looking at it all the time. I never close the closet door. But if I had to touch anything, I went out this past weekend and I had to find something cute to wear. And all I could think is, what am I going to do with this stuff? Like, I don't know what to do with it. It's overwhelming, in other words. And so I read, is it Marie Kondo? Is that her name?
That is her name.
And so I listened to her book, audiobook, and she's like, focus on what gives you joy. Keep what doesn't, I love the emotional aspect of that. Whatever gives you joy, everything in my closet, I think, gives me joy, honestly. But I haven't gone through my closet.
That's okay, as long as you're going to use it, or you have used it in the last month or two, or you're going to start using it again, because we are getting out of this COVID balloon of hibernating, right, for the last 2.5 years. So now people are going to start going out again, or, meeting up for at least coffee or whatnot. So,
Yeah. Tara, how do you begin conversations and working with clients?
Well, for the most part, I've done a lot of pantry organizations. And to start, in an ideal world, I would love to have that contractor person that can go in, do measurements, make shelves and all of that good stuff. But in my reality, that doesn't exist. So where I start with something like that, to give you an example, we'll go through all the expired food. And believe it or not, some people have a hard time letting go of expired food. They feel like it still can be eaten. And I guess some of it can be, but I wouldn't want to eat it. But that's where I would start in a situation like that. And if they insist on keeping it, then I tend to regroup, light things together, keep, your starches, and try to make sense of it for them. Because if you don't make sense of it for them, it's not going to stay orderly. That's what I've learned. If it makes sense in my mind, it's not making sense to them, it's going to be back to a mess all over. So we have those discussions. Okay, well, when you reach in, what is the things that you reach for most? And we try to keep those upfront and visible. If you don't use a lot of canned goods, well, just make sense of the pantry situation so that it makes it easy for them to get in there and get what they need to cook with. And I like the idea of organizational bins, but sometimes bins can really be a nuisance for some people, especially the ones you can't see in. And if I do the project and they're not involved with me, they're going to forget what's in those bins. I mean, you can label stuff, but sometimes you may want to change up what's in those bins and baskets and so forth. So my opinion would be to get the client involved in the whole process as much as possible, even though they want to go sit away and just do what they want to do and just let you take over. That's been my experience, to get them more involved and watching what's going on and having an input.
So decluttering, I understand the importance of having a person involved. But with organizing, do you necessarily, like, for instance, Tracy, you said you look at the entire home, get an idea of the person's style. And so with organizing, do you necessarily need them present to accomplish their vision?
Not always. Not always, no. I mean, if they want to be, we invite them to be part of it, but I'm finding more and more clients don't want to. And I'm accepting that, and that's okay. I usually, what we will do is we will talk about different items maybe that would look great in their, let's say in their pantry or in their, their kitchen or bedroom closet, whatnot. One may like the Container Store and love clear bins, or maybe one might like, they're okay just having plastic hangers. Maybe they're on a budget, maybe they want to go big. So I don't always have to have the client with me. I'll try to get some ideas from them by, talking and stuff. But a lot of the time, they just tell me to go for it. I'm the professional. They'll say, I know what they trust me, and just to go for it. And so usually that's how it kind of starts out. The decluttering is the big part, and it's not necessarily, and the decluttering also is not always about things that they're just not using. It's also about trash, or people don't realize, you have those, let's say in a closet, you may have lots of wire hangers from the dry cleaners, and the paper that comes with that, and the plastic that comes with that. I have thrown out in one decluttering job one time, at least 50 to 100 hangers from the dry cleaners that needed to come out of a closet. So with that being said, that's trash. That's part of decluttering, and your closet looks so much better by just getting those little things out.
What I have realized is over the years, styles change. As you grow older, things change, and your like for something might not be the same when you're older. You said Tracy, you ask people what their style is. And even with hangers, I don't know anything about I've looked on Pinterest and other places and seen these fancy hangers, and it's like, oh, I should check that out, but I never do. So I don't know anything about anything that will help me organize my closet.
That's okay, because we have ideas. I try to tell people, stay off Pinterest. It's kind of like, how doctors and nurses hate it when we get on WebMD. They have to stay off Pinterest too. I don't always think that's a whole nother topic, I think, but Pinterest is not always realistic.
It's not.
I mean, is it pretty? Sure. Is there some cool stuff? Of course. But it's for me and a lot of my clients, it's about keeping it simple. However, I have ideas. Even if you don't necessarily have a style, that's okay. It's not about necessarily you having a style. I'm not coming in to do interior design, but I can point you in the right direction of a whole lot of things that you may or may not need, and I usually don't start telling a client that they need anything until after a couple of sessions, because a lot of the time the client already has it.
Yes.
Containers, usually it's the containers that they have, or maybe they do have hangers, but maybe they're going to need a few more because, well, all those clothes, they need to be hung up and they have been, shoved somewhere. So that's okay. Even if you don't have a style, I mean, think about your, kids that are off at college and they need help with their dorm rooms. It's not about necessarily finding a style, but it's finding out what they like.
A lot of times when you look at Pinterest, or if, in those Container Stores, it's not practical. They have those two ladies that made it big, the Home Edit. I can't think of their names, but when they go and they organize stuff, they actually they do things in a color coding system. Not everyone's going to have a rainbow of colors in their closet or in their pantry. Mainly, I've seen where they did a pantry and they had the lady buy green cereal so it could fit into their color scheme when they were organizing the stuff. Right. And I felt that's so unpractical. I believe in repurpose, recycle, reuse. I always think landfill, the stuff that we're throwing out. I mean, if we could repurpose some of even sometimes you can repurpose a shoebox and turn it into you don't always have to buy a plastic bin or a storage container.
Definitely. It's just chatting with clients when we're first meeting them also, just to kind of find out how their brain works. Knowing what they do for a living also helps, because when it comes to people, maybe you're an engineer, brains function differently. And it's not about intelligence, it's about how you are going to see your things, or how you're going to be able to keep track of them. Everybody does things a little differently. And so when I come into somebody's house, it's not about how it's going to work for me, it's how it's going to make it simple and work for you. So the edits, the home, the home edit show, where some may, think it's fabulous.
Mhm.
I don't always think it's realistic. I'm going to agree with Tara on that, because if I had to organize everything in my pantry by color that's all red, that takes forever. You put, for me, you put like items with like items. All the seasonings go together, all the starches go together, all the baking stuff, or
Mhm.
like, and I have a bin, maybe it's all the coconut stuff, all the oil and the shredded coconut, sweetened, unsweetened, for different cooking. But, so you break it down like that. You want to keep it easy. We're not dealing with people that have a lot of time and want to stand around all day organizing. This is not fun. It's like saying, oh, we're going to clean house today. Isn't it going to be exciting? No, it's not. To some of them, this is not, it's hard. It's hard for some people, where it comes easier for people like Tara and I.
So why do you think it's hard? Like, do you think it's hard because people don't want to deal with their stuff?
No, not necessarily. No, I don't think I think what happens is, I think you have to start out teaching somebody young. And I think we've kind of talked
Right.
about this before. Like, if you tell a kid to go in and clean their room, well, they don't know what to do, because they do see the toys all over, and the clothes or whatever it is, shoes and papers from school. So you have to kind of break it down easy, and just like I would with an adult. Okay, this is what we're going to start with. We're going to start with all the trash. And why have people gotten so hard? Why is that so hard for people to stay organized? Because they were not taught those lessons and encouraged and stayed on top of as they grew older. So I feel like a lot of this has come from my mom, it's what she instilled in me. And so, you keep things a certain way, or after, it's grown too small, or you don't like it anymore, then we're going to donate it and find it a new home. So with teaching somebody when they're younger how to do this, as they get older, it becomes a life lesson. And,
Yeah.
you take something out, what do? You put it away. It's the same. It sounds just that easy, but it is just that easy, but it's not easy for
Yeah,
everybody.
it's
Right.
a practice like anything else.
Yeah.
Like you said, creating a system that works for you, that logically makes sense for you.
Having a place for everything, and putting it back in that place works for me. And I don't always constantly do it, but at the end of the week, if I let things get out of order, well, I know where all of that stuff goes, and I can easily put it back in its prospective places. But if you don't have a place for everything to go, then you're going to be dealing with chaos all the time.
And
It's
you
just,
live alone. It's
I
easy
live
to
alone.
maintain.
Yes,
Yeah.
I do live alone. I live alone, but even when I had a son, I would see his room would get chaotic, and I would at least I'd go in there, and you need to know what's going on in your kids' spaces anyway. And even though he may not have done things the way I wanted them done, I would go in there and I made sure that everything in his room had a place for it. And if I told him to clean up his room, he knew that, okay, mama clean and his clean is two different things. So I tell him, I said, well, I want your room clean like I would clean it. And he knew what that meant. So I taught him that, when he was younger. So, like Tracy was saying, it's a learned behavior. My grandmother instilled those habits in me. So, she taught me those habits too. I told my sister just the other day, I remember my grandmother teaching me how to make a bed. She said, well, doesn't that come natural? Well, no, not for me.
Nope.
Make the bed, and anyone that sleeps at my house, just like, oh, your bed is made like a hotel. I said, well, that's a skill. Some people don't see that as a skill, but it can be a skill. So it's stuff that you have to practice and keep practicing over time.
Yeah.
To perfect it. You have to start. You know, for me, what works for me, Donna, and that has happened to me. I make a list. I'm a visual person. So this morning, give you an example. While I was watching TV, I said, you know, there's a lot of things I need to do around here. So I made a list. And once I made that list, I was able to accomplish everything that I needed to do. So sometimes that could be a technique to help when you start feeling like you're overwhelmed with everything being all over the place. And you may not get everything done on your list, but start somewhere.
So it's important to be intentional, whether you create a list or whatever it is you do, set the intention and create a practice.
And set a timer for an hour. You may not have a lot of time. You did, well, okay, in this hour, I'm going to try to accomplish A, B, and C. And so that you could feel like you're making progress.
If you don't have the amount of space, you know, this is what a lot of people are doing. They don't have room in their homes anymore because their garage is already full, or the shed and their spare bedrooms, whatnot. So then they're renting storage units, which is killing me. That's a whole nother.
Yes, I mean,
but they're filling up all these storage units with all this stuff. And it's just like, but why? And a lot of them, you know, they just don't want to get rid of it because they think they might just need it, or there's so many memories willing to, you know, try to at least, you know, make a small dent, then this is not going to work. You're just wasting your money.
I guess for the person that really truly wants to get rid of the stuff, in my mind, I would think that there's so many avenues of selling things to make money or to repurpose or reach out to family members that may appreciate some of your things and take that approach with it. When you have, if a person truly really wants to downsize and get rid of things. And to pay storage for that, you could put it in perspective. Okay, well, if you didn't have these storage fees, you could travel more. You could actually, you know, spend more time with family if your family is out of state. It just makes to me, if you put things in an attic or in a storage facility, you don't need them. That's my take on it. You don't need them.
And stuff accumulates so quickly. It easily becomes overwhelming. I believe that our clutter represents what's going on in our mind. It's a clear representation of our life. What are your, and I know you're not mental health professionals, but what are your thoughts about how clutter impacts our mental health and our overall well-being? And also clearing your space, how that frees you, how that allows you to release. What are your thoughts about those things? And Tara, you go first.
To not have it is just like having a whole weight lifted off your shoulders. It creates peace for me. When I don't see things all over the place, and it's like a puzzle in my mind. So if I come home or if I create a mess throughout the week and like you said, it's just me here and I see things all over the place. When I go in to put everything back, that just takes stress off of me to know that everything's been put back in its place. Mentally, I think that having less clutter will, you know, eventually it'll put you in a more peaceful space and mindset. And you're not worried, because it can bring on a sense of worrying a lot if you have all of these things to contend with. And you know, if out of sight, sometimes it's truly out of mind. You don't think about it if you don't have it around you anymore. That's what I think.
I agree with that. Out of sight, out of mind, you're not dealing with it. And in some cases, we avoid dealing with it by creating the storage units or, you know, instead of keeping my closet door open, closing the closet door so I never have to go in and look at my stuff. Out of sight, out of mind. And again, I just want to keep the death conversation at the focus here, because that is how some of us live our life. We avoid topics, we avoid a lot of things, and like you said, out of sight, out of mind. And then when we get to the end of our life, because we haven't dealt with something in the moment, it accumulates and it becomes overwhelming. And when we're at the end of our life, we got so much to think about. We can't just die peacefully, right? You got to plan and you got to think about, oh, well, I want my child to have this sentimental item or whatever it is. So it
Mhm.
really is bad to ignore your stuff, and it does impact you mentally.
It's interesting though, and without getting all into the whole psychological side of why people allow stuff to accumulate. We're dealing with people that for some, there's just no reason. They were just not taught the habits of keeping
Right.
things organized, tidy, and decluttering. But then there's some, they're depressed.
Yeah.
There's some
Yeah.
that have ADHD and they just don't know how to maintain it because their brain is always racing. It never turns off. So if you're not given the tools and able to just given that get the help that you need to figure it all out, whatever your situation is, this is why things just accumulate. And so for some, it's a control. For maybe for Tara and I've lived by myself and now I'm not. And so it's a little harder. But when I did, everything was perfect in my apartment every
Right.
time. Donna, you can ask every one of the girls that had been to my apartment. Everything had its place. And when they left, it went right back in that place again. But now that I have to share my space with somebody, it's a little different. For the most, it's still, we're working on training one another, but there's a lot of, you have to forgive a lot in there. And, it's not always going to be perfect.
Yeah. This this organization, it's a battered women and children organization. And I feel like they have me on speed dial. They call me every month and let me know when a truck is in my neighborhood. And every month I make it a point, even if it's one box of items, I'll put out for them to take. So maybe if you could find a charitable organization that you have a bond with, or you have a passion for, and just make it a point to just get rid of, even if it's just a couple of items, just get yourself trained to do that. And you'll see, you'll start seeing things leave that you won't even miss. But you got to start somewhere.
Even just start, and that's excellent. I'm interested in hearing more about organizations that take donations, especially if they'll come and get them, which I have a couple that I like to use, but also just setting up like stations in your home. And a station meaning like a container or a box to throw an item in. And it doesn't have to stay out all the time, but especially, every so often you have this container sitting out and you throw items into it that you're not going to use. An item in your kitchen that it's been down there in the cabinet forever, for 5 years, and you've never used it. How many people have these air fryers and these Instapots? They've never even used them. A friend of mine was telling me when she got married 10 years ago, they have an Instapot. She's never even used it.
We get caught up in the rave of everything, how everybody is.
Yeah.
And Donna, another thing too for your closet, you could put one of those reusable shopping bags in your closet, and as you see something that you're not going to wear, you don't want, just drop it in that bag.
Drop it in that bag.
Those are great tips. No, really, I'm going to incorporate that. It's really important. There is a place, and I get emails from them all the time. They will come and pick up. It's they're called Green Drop. And they support the American Red Cross, and they will actually come to my house and pick up items that I want to donate to the American Red Cross. So do you have any other ideas of where people can donate items? Like obviously we know the Red Cross and Goodwill.
And there's always Goodwill, but definitely what's helpful is when you get those items bagged up and boxed up is Vietnam vets are usually around in a neighborhood, depending on what area you're in. Sometimes when you get further out away from the city, a metropolitan city, they don't come out to that area, but they're great to use. And the American Kidney Society, they will also come and pick up things. And then the nice thing with the Vietnam vets is they take everything, because they're trying to get somebody reestablished. My whole understanding is that they love to help just get people back on their feet.
Okay.
Household items, anything. So
Tara, any other thought? I know you mentioned some places where you're able to sell your items and consignment shops, and so you can recoup some. You're not going to recoup all of your money. You spent it, it's gone, let it go.
Right.
But if you want to sell your items, there are places where consignment shops is one. But do you have any other ideas of donating and selling
Well, Facebook Market is the most popular that I can think of. Furniture is so expensive now. There's so many folks out there that will buy your used furniture and refinish it or and then resell it. So there's lots of avenues to get rid of your things and even make a profit or even bring in some sort of income from it.
Like I've tried using Facebook Marketplace, but I'll use Nextdoor, the app,
Yeah.
the website for selling things in the neighborhood. But some of the clothing sites, even though it would be great to be able to get, you know, $100 from something that you spent $500 on, if it's a clothing like a coat or whatever, people want a nickel and dime and people want it
Yes.
cheap. So you have to be patient. And so it's not always easy and it takes time. You have to take pictures. I mean, so my whole point of that is consigning or selling on an app or website. If you spent, you know, $50 or $100 on something, it may just have to, you know, give it to somebody. You may just have to, because it's hard and you're already dealing with somebody that's not able to keep their things organized as it is. And even though it would be nice to earn some money back from something you wore, which I wish that we all could, it's not always going to work because, you know, it takes forever sometimes. Sometimes it'll sell right away. Other times you'll get 1 or 2 likes and nobody's interested in buying it. So, I mean, it can be really hit and miss.
ThredUp is an organization where you can your clothes, and if they don't sell it, they make you literally sign a contract, an agreement saying if we don't sell it, we're going to donate it.
Oh, I
So
like that.
that's not get it back in your possession if you know if you just need to be rid of it, and if you're okay with not making a profit or any money, then you know that's a way of getting rid of clothing.
So the app I mentioned was called Poshmark, Poshmark, and of course there's always Craigslist and eBay.
There's a ton of, you know, battered women's, you know, shelters or, you know, shelters to help get men back in the workforce, also men and women, and just, you know, people in general. People need things. There's so many people that don't have, you know, as much as I may have. And so I would rather just try to donate to them, you know, and then trying to sell it. Say too, sometimes I have clients that have things that they know they are just not going to get rid of. So then I come up with, I'll call them creative artistic ideas, how to still keep it. So let's say you had a child and that child has passed away. You don't want to just dump all of the clothes and get rid of them. So a lot of them, you could take one special outfit that you really loved. Maybe it's a christening gown and bonnet. Why not have it displayed in a shadow box? Why not take some of those different clothes if they're not really wearable, or maybe just take a few of the certain items of the clothes and have them made into a stuffed animal, like a stuffed bear. I've seen a lot of my cousin, she passed away, I want to say like 12 years ago now. And so my aunt had a few of her clothing items, her favorite things that she wore, and she had them made into like this little stuffed bear. So there's always a way to still incorporate it. I have my mom's wedding dress. Why it was sent to me, I have no idea, but it's like this little size 2 wedding dress. Like, what am I going to do with it? So I was thinking eventually I'm going to have it made into like throw pillows.
It's important to remember that when you let go of a deceased loved one's things,
yes,
you're not letting go of the memories or you're not letting go of the love that you have for that person. It's still there. And so I like what you said. Choose what you want to keep, create meaning to that, and then you can release everything else.
They can even take pictures of those items too and still get rid of it, but maybe they just take a picture of that item.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes putting these far-fetched, crazy ideas out there makes the client rethink, like, maybe it is okay to just let go and get rid of it, you know? And why am I holding on to it? So if you say, oh, let's just take pictures, you know, maybe you can take a picture. Of course, you'll be taking like 30 or 40 pictures. And then the client starts thinking like, yeah, maybe I'll just get rid of it, you know? So make it easier.
Well, like you said, you know, no one can ever take away your memories of that person. For me, in in going through my mother's things, it brought me more joy knowing that I was able to pass them on to someone that would appreciate them and want to use them and continue using them. Whereas just having it create a shrine in my home or my sister's home where, you know, we didn't want to get rid of it because it belonged to our mom. And she and I had those conversations where, and I, you know, there was this coat. My mom never wore it, but she kept it for many, many years. And my sister kept it and because my mother kept it. And I said, you know what, you're not gonna wear it. Just let it go. If you feel the need to want to revisit it, take a picture of it. And that's what she did. She took a picture of it and she
Nice.
donated. But like you said, Donna, no one can ever take the memories away. And that's the most important thing, the memories that you have of that loved one.
What do you say to people like me who really, it's like nobody can see this?
So I tell them, first of all, don't be ashamed, don't be embarrassed. You're not the first, you won't be the last. And you took the first step by calling me and getting me to come over and to see what's going on. So I praise them for at least taking that first step. You know, they're trying to do something, they're trying to make a change. So I just remind them that they're really not alone, you know. And you asked earlier about, you commented, or you were asking, I think, about, is there actually is it unreasonable or reasonable to have any sort of disorganization ever in your home? And yeah, there's a little bit of, play, play with that. My house is not perfect. Most people think that organizers must have a perfect home, that everything has its place. You know what? My stuff all has a place, yes, but it's not perfect. Right now, my garage is still, it needs some attention, but it's a little cold out there. So I'm going to wait till March at least. But you see what I'm saying? So like, I try to get people not to be so hard on themselves. And I think as people, especially as women, we're really hard on ourselves and we're really hard on one another. So, so maybe it is, messy, maybe it's disorganized and dirty, and, but we can help, that can be fixed, that can be adjusted. And, I just hate, it makes me sad when I hear people, I've had clients crying because their life is in such shambles, or in their mind it is.
None of us are perfect, but we all are able to help one another. And it is important to be vulnerable and to be transparent, because that is the only way change can happen.
Exactly.
So it was easy for me to say that, but I'm still embarrassed.
Don't be embarrassed.
And it's okay, I'm embarrassed, but I'm going to step into that because that is the only way change can happen. Why don't we just recap really quickly? One, you got to learn how to organize your home, maintain the system, and create those habits. It's a practice. It doesn't come easily. And just like you would teach a child, most of us didn't learn as children. But those skills are important. They don't come naturally for most people. And so to create those practices, even create practices on donating. Find an organization that you care about, create a system in your home. Take it slow, step by step. Don't overwhelm yourself. Take one piece at a time. Start with the shoes, whatever it is you're going to do.
When people feel like they're going to have a hard time with the decluttering, whether it's mail or getting something done in their closet or whatever particular room, setting a timer.
Yes.
And maybe and I'm going to go shorter than an hour. I'm going to say, just for, maybe mail is 10 or 15 minutes. Sit down, even if you want to pull up a chair or sit on the couch with all of it, just start at it and set your timer on your phone or, an egg timer, whatever you have. And, and if you did well with that, then maybe, and setting a date. So you're going to set up as a reminder, like on your phone. We all have smartphones, set it up so it pops up on your calendar, whatnot, that you're going to declutter, mail for the day, or mail for like 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, just keeping it easy for yourself, and being gentle with yourself, that it's okay.
My main thing, I love a list. I'm a visual person. So writing 2 or 3 things down on a list to accomplish, that works for me. I have a dry erase board. If I need things that I run out in my kitchen or whatever, I'll put that on my dry eraser board, and when it's time to go to the store, I just take a picture of it. Having that charitable organization on speed dial, they literally, the lady knows me. She calls me every month. So just having that box of items, and I'll go looking, scavenging my house for things just to, because I know there's something in my home that I can use on a regular basis. So those are the main three things that's worked for me, or that still works for me.
I like that. It creates accountability. Like you said, the charitable organization has you on speed dial. And so if you create those relationships, then you create accountability for yourself, because you know they're going to be calling, you know that someone needs whatever it is you're donating. And so it kind of makes you, one, want to help somebody else, and makes you take care of yourself. I love that. Thank you for that. This has been a very wonderful conversation. Great way to incorporate end-of-life planning, and considering your end of life is by helping people to get rid of their things, because we need to be preparing to exit this life, right? That's inevitable. That's the one thing we know for sure is going to happen. And if we don't deal with our stuff, it just continues to pile. And as we said, it can impact your mood and your overall mental health. This channel is dedicated to normalizing death and end of life and legacy conversations, whole life conversations. We plan everything in our life, right?
Right.
We choose to, like with our clutter, forget that death is coming, forget that it exists even, and we just plan our life as if it's never going to end. And so dealing with our clutter also in some ways helps us to deal with our mortality. Sometimes we don't want to let things go because we are stuck in the past. We consume sometimes because we're stuck in the future. And so the goal is to get people to live in the present, right here and now, create systems that work, learn how to practice maintaining those systems. And that really helps our overall well-being. And so again, thank you for being here today. I appreciate your time. Maybe I'll be calling for some tips and some help.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us.
Yes, thanks.